And I wanted to talk about Duke because the headlines when Selection Sunday occurred last week, the main focus was on the idea of Duke being in the East region and getting a tough draw in comparison to the other number one overall seeds because Duke was the consensus number one team in the NCAA tournament, meaning that they were the best number one seed in the whole NCAA tournament in comparison to Michigan, Arizona, and I cannot think from the top of my head who was the other number one seed in the other region. But you get what I'm trying to say here. And the focal point has been, it was Florida, who actually just lost on Sunday night. But on top of that, everyone has been discussing about Duke being the first team to get put out. And against Siena on Thursday, that looked like that was about to come true. And the idea of Duke and the way they have played basketball all season, they are a second half team. And during the Siena game, I told myself Siena was playing well, but I kept on saying Duke's a second half team. Duke is a second half team. But boy, as the minutes waned on, I got super scared. But they ended up clawing out a win. And on Saturday against TCU, specifically in the first half, it was definitely shades of the Siena game. They're only up 4. But Duke did what Duke did all year. But in this game against TCU, in comparison to the Siena game, they were way more dominant in the second half and actually ended up winning by 20 plus points against the Horned Frogs. And why do I want to talk about Duke in general? Well, I want to give Duke a lot of credit. And I'm not saying that because I am a Duke fan, but just for the idea of the current college basketball. You can tell I'm talking too much about college football, but the current college basketball landscape and how things have shaped out over the last couple days in March Madness. Because Duke, to me, has been super undervalued. And I said that, and I say that, to say this because of the previous things that I've stated. They're in a hard region. Everyone has said that. People has picked them to be the first team to get put out in the NCAA tournament. You got all these blue blood schools in their region. You got UConn. You got St. John's with Rick Pitino. You got Tom Izzo and Michigan State. You even had Florida that they possibly could. No, not Florida. Not Florida. I was thinking of another team that they could possibly have to go up against in their own region. UConn, I think, is who I was talking about. But what has Duke done? Duke has been under the microscope. Specifically, I'm saying this when it pertains to media. You got all these other teams, Darius Acuff and the Razorbacks being a focal point in the media, Kansas and Bill Self. Oh, Kansas was the other team I was thinking about. That was in the other blue blood school. Kansas and Bill Self and Darren Peterson, that whole fiasco they had going on. St. John's and Rick Pitino, how well Rick Pitino has led this team to the Sweet 16, and how they are currently the favorites to be in the Final Four in this region, even above Duke, and being a lot of people liking, because Duke is favored currently right now -6.5. A lot of people are loving, not even liking, they are loving the idea of St. John's taking St. John's in the betting line +6.5 to upset Duke. People are loving that line on Friday night. But this is the reason why people had to put a little bit more respect on Duke, because this is not where you want a Duke basketball team. We're talking about a Duke basketball team who has been the number one team all year for the majority of the season. And you find them in a spot in comparison to last year where they were the favorites to win it all. Clear and large by many people across the media, but it's different this year. This year, if I remember correctly, through a 20-game span, they had a better record than what they did last year with Cooper Flagg and everyone else. This year, they're not the focal point. They are the underdogs. So all the pressure is off of their backs. Cameron Bruiser, haven't really heard much about him in the NCAA tournament. That isn't because his play has had a precipitous drop-off. It's just because people have been focused on him And he hasn't been able to adapt, but he's still been able to play well and make enough plays, getting a lot of and ones in order for his team to win. But two key players that I think we really undervalued as well is Patrick Gumba and Caleb Foster. Specifically, Caleb Foster. Patrick Gumba was back against TCU, and his presence was very much felt. But for me, Caleb Foster has been pretty undervalued, specifically on the defensive end of the floor. Cameron? Jayden Boozer, not Caleb. Jayden Boozer has been a liability on the defensive end. He has stepped up his play in the last couple of games since he's had to take over the lead role with the absence of Caleb Foster, but it is reported that John Shire has said Caleb Foster has an outside chance of playing on Friday. I don't think he does, but if I do think if Duke gets into the Elite Eight, I think Caleb Foster is going to be available to play. But they are super valuable, and they are two key players, Gumba and Foster, who are the secret weapons to Duke possibly winning it all. But I personally feel like, in comparison to Michigan and countless other teams across the NCAA tournament currently in the Sweet 16, I think this team's ceiling is the Final Four. I do not see a scenario where they get to the championship game. I would love it. It would not surprise me if they do. But the only way I see that even happening, the only way I see them even getting to the Final Four is if Caleb Foster isn't wearing a Duke jersey, leading them into Elite Eight, and them getting past the Sweet 16 with Rick Pitino and St. John's. It's an interesting matchup. I think it favors Duke in a way because St. John's is the worst three-point shooting team left in the tournament, and that has been Duke's Achilles heel during these two games against Siena and TCU. Siena was 5 for 11 at halftime from the three-point line. I love this matchup for Duke. I don't love it in the sense to where St. John's is a bigger ball club and they play physical defense on the same, not as the same caliber of Duke, but darn close to it. So that is a pretty even matchup. And Duke being favored by 6 points by Vegas does say a lot. Now, the general media is going to sit around and make you think that Duke is on major upset alert. But let's not be fooled. I love Duke against St. John's, and I do think Duke is going to go in there and get a win. And if Caleb Foster is available, and even if he plays 10 minutes, I really, really, really do. And this is super unbiased. I really do love Duke's chances to go in and compete at a super high level.